Let's see. No, not yet. Welcome. Welcome. No, not yet. It's working. I'm gonna just wait. To see if we have some people joining us. In the meantime, nothing fancy. Up, 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 up. Either way, if you're ho ho ho, ho ho ho.調子どう？調子どうですか？今日。聞こえる？聞こえますか？シャワー出たか？なるほどな。シャワーが終わりか。終わりじゃん。誰かがいますか？ I will start in 3 minutes. いないか。はい、待ちます。じゃあ待ちます。いないなら待ちます。いないならとっても待ちます。でも何？ でもサンライクか。なるほど。Guys, if you are here, let us know in the chat. If not, we're gonna start in a few minutes. See if anybody joins us. If not, y'all watch it later, I guess. If not, you can watch it later. It's a possibility. If you so desire. Some people have been known to, what do you call it? Watch things later. Watch things just a little later. So that's a possibility. Tune, 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 tune. Tune, 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 tune. 誰もいないか? All right. Let's start. Let's start, and if people join, they join, and if they don't, that's fine. Today I want to look at Katsuhiro Otomo-san, the famous author behind Akira. And I'm going to look at this very famous panel from a different manga of his, a little less known, but had a lot of impact on the manga scene, called Domu. And there's this panel that depicts a character being shoved into the wall by a mysterious telekinetic force. And there are quite a few things, interesting things being used here, namely the perspective that I want to talk about. Perspective. And is interesting, a little bit of form stuff. I think composition and line work, very impactful line work here, that I think we could talk about. So when I analyze a scene like this, I start with kind of like looking at what the perspective is like. And the way that you can always do that is you look at, it's very easy on a piece like this because you have very defined, you have these very defined perspective lines because you have walls that are straight and windows that are straight. So you can find these lines to really establish your horizon line. Let's see, I'll take it into here and show you something. Right, so if you follow these lines that you can see in the walls here. Hey Jack, how you doing? If you follow these lines that you see in the wall here, all the way until you find where they cross, this crossing point is a vanishing point that would sit on your horizon line. So now you can, draw more lines, and you can find your horizon line. But in this particular picture, one thing that we do notice is that your horizon line will not be straight as it usually is, like this, because we can see that the line here in the wall is tilted, which means that we have a tilted horizon line. So the horizon line would connect to this vanishing point and would run at 90 degrees to this tilted line. Right? So it's complex, but it's easy, and that's what I want to show you today. I'm good. Thank you. So when you have a tilted horizon line, you can sort of like connect a vanishing point like this to your to the tilt that we found here in the wall, and I found the 90-degree angle to our tilt and the vanishing point, and this is how we know that this is our horizon line. And of course, this is a 2-point perspective, so we can estimate our other vanishing point, which would be way in the back. And I'm not gonna draw that far, but we already see that we have a composition that is tilted. A tilted composition in film and in manga and in various settings always means that something unsettling is happening. So it's considered to be a more dramatic sort of angle. Right, so now I want to go ahead and start recreating that scene to look at some more interesting things that are happening in it. Boop, 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 boop. This is a very iconic panel. Do you know that manga? Right, so I'm gonna quickly redraw my own frame here. You should check it out. It's called Domu, and I'll write it up top. It's a very famous manga. Maybe for it's like famous with like artists and people who are into it. Let's do this. Domu. Right, so now we have established our horizon line as well as our overall perspective. The next thing I want to look at that I think is really interesting here is this crater in the wall. And there are various things that I find interesting about it. So I will start with, let's see here. It's not a perfect ellipse, we can see that, but I think for the purpose of studying this, it would be cool to find a perfect ellipse. So I would start with finding a plane here, right? Let's assume, right? Let's assume for a second that this is, in perspective, a square. Just gonna go a little bit that way. In order to draw a perfect ellipse inside the square, we can go ahead, draw an X. And now we can use the vanishing point to find the minor axis. And the same way, find the 4 points that spring from the center of the square. And this is how you generally create a perfect ellipse, by making sure that it touches the 4 points, these 4 points. This is how you find your perfect ellipse in perspective. Again, the ellipse here is not perfect, but just for the sake of studying it, we can now estimate what a nice looking ellipse would look like. Right, and we can keep refining it until we find something that looks right. I can see that by the way that this ellipse looks, my plane here is not a square in perspective. We can talk about that some other time. But anyway, what's important here is the depth. And the way that we can describe depth with ellipses is basically by drawing the same ellipse in an offset inside here. And the more offset, the more inside we put it, the more depth we'll have, right? We're starting to look at what it looks like from the inside. And the shallower, if we want to make it shallower, we put it more towards the middle, right? So this would be a shallower crater, kind of like what we have in the image. We can also do the opposite by taking that ellipse and putting it outside, and then we create a sort of a hill. But for all intents and purposes, what we have here is sort of like a somewhat shallow crater in the wall. So once we have that, we can start looking at the character and how the character is arranged inside the wall here. Let me just dial that down a little bit and dial these ellipses down a little bit. Bow. Maybe this. Cool. So the nice thing about this particular example is that we have the character sitting at the same sort of structure of the perspective. So I can go ahead and use the same angles from my perspective to design my character. Starting with a mannequin. Right? Again, I can check my angles with my perspective grid. I can drop a center line. Pelvis. Pelvis. Legs. So made it just a little bit too big, so make it smaller here. And we can see that this is, it looks like it's going below my horizon line, which means that my initial horizon line that I drew is incorrect. Or maybe the image is incorrect. Something is not correct. Either way, I can angle these legs like so. And it seems like maybe one leg goes a little bit outside here. Like this. And you can analyze any panel in the world like this. And I think the more important thing is once we finished this, is I'll show you how we build a new thing from scratch based on that. And that is the greatest exercise you can do. Right? So we figured out the perspective. We figured out the mannequin. We can add this window here. Right? It's a bit smaller. And now we can look at the line work. So I think the line work is actually is one of the most exciting things here, and I'll try to show you a few points that I think are important. So I'm not gonna I'm not going to invest too much in recreating this, but just for the sake of by the way, I actually I think that the folds here are not, they're not, I don't love the folds, not for my taste anyway. But I do love the overall impact. So I'll show you in a second. Right, so we have this character. Right there. And then comes the interesting part. And it's these lines leading from the inside of the crater. So we can find a, the center innermost point of the crater, and then think of these lines as coming outside of that. And we can follow what we drew here. Right, and then we get that 3D effect. And we can keep taking into account the perspective. Now here's what I was excited to talk to you about. Notice that there will be more lines and darker on this side, because basically what's happening is that everything is more condensed. Let me try to explain this. Everything gets more condensed as it's foreshortened. So let's say that you have this cylinder. And on this cylinder you have, let's say 3 whatever grooves, 3, I don't know what they are, 3 thingies that spring out of it. If you now foreshorten this cylinder to where you get something like this, right? These guys coming out of it are going to look like this. Right? Again, if you have 3 cubes, and you foreshorten them, you're going to get something like that. This is what's happening. So for example, the lines here are this, and the lines over here are that. So that's something really cool that is happening in this picture. If you have questions, let me know in the comments, in the chat. Right, and I keep thinking about this as springing from this point. Right, we're starting to get something like that. Now we can draw the rest of the thing. But I think this concept is super, super important. This right here. There's a cylinder up top. And basically you can just go ahead and have tons of fun with designing these broken thingies. Take a look here, how they cast shadow. And basically what these lines do is they act as contour lines to describe the form, right? So it's really cross contour. That's the beauty of it. It shows you the form of everything here. Right? Like you can take this perspective line and then it drops down into here and then it keeps going up in perspective, and then you will know exactly where to continue it because it goes from here to here. So it will continue there. And that's how you can really show the depth of this crater. I think that's cool. And as for the other shading that he does here, it's very minimal. It's very minimal. But there's some coming. There's some light coming from above, casting shadow here. And you also have some shadow, like it seems like something is also casting a shadow like that. So this is basically your occlusion. So where the character is closest to the wall, the connection points become the darkest. And to show some of these stones flying around, for example, he draws a stone like this, and then you can see that it's close to the wall by the fact that he puts a cast shadow, like so. And that makes the effect, makes it seem like some of these stones are flying close to the wall. So now once you understood this, I would go ahead, like this, when I study a frame like this, that would be part one of me understanding it. And then I would go into part two, which is creating my own design based on what I learned. So I'm going to try to show you. I'm going to try to take all of these elements and show you what I do next. Let's see. Take this rectangle. Maybe whatever. We'll just do it here. So I'll keep the analysis for reference. And I really encourage everybody who's studying these things to do exactly this. So I will build another frame. Doesn't have to be the same size, but. And now I will use maybe not the same perspective, but maybe a similar one. So maybe this time we'll have again, a tilted horizon line around here. And I'll have a crater going from the top. And I can start designing my own scene. And of course, for our scene, we're going to have Waru-chan. And we can put in the window. And maybe his head is going to be just a little smaller here. And now, for example, I started with the head, so it's the same thing that we looked at earlier. If I put that head further in the back here of this ellipse, further to the right, I will get the illusion. Just a second. I will get the illusion that he is further inset into the ellipse. And for me, I want to try to show a bit more of an impact here. So like he was just thrown into there. Something like that. And of course the famous pants underwear. Choo-choo. Maybe one leg could go that way. And I feel like there would be more impact with this pose if the head went further, more forward like that.チュチュン。チュチュン何知ってるの? And I want, you know what? I want to bring back the piece itself. Just bring it back here. Just for reference. To show you how the shading works. Try not to detail it too much, but it's hard because it's fun. This is where it's just getting too much fun. And maybe I'll make him even smaller so there's more impact. Just, for example, like I made the character, the character big, so there's less impact. If I make him smaller, it looks like there's more building. Somewhere in the middle, if I go like that, there's just like a better sense of kind of like a better sense of scale. And now I could go in with the occlusion and really, if I make these close shadows like that, I can really give the same kind of feeling that he's very close to the wall, stuck to it, basically. Right? And then in my head, I'm going to try to find a center point here from where I will draw out these cracks. Maru, kawaii ne. And it's the same thing. We're going to have more condensed looking cracks where we have the most for shortening. And we can use the perspective to put, not everything, but some of the cracks, we can use the perspective to help help solidify the idea of what perspective this whole thing is in the viewer's mind. Right? We could literally run one of our lines here to describe exactly what's going on. And keep reinforcing that. And while we're at it, we can shade it a little bit from the top. To already give more of a feeling for the depth in this crater. And then the way he does it, he would take a piece out, use some shadow to show that it's flying, and that would create even more chaos. Right, we can go ahead, there's like a pipe up here. Maybe we can, again, use the same perspective to add more details, whether it's like pipes or since it's my own scene, I can start having fun with it. Maybe the pipes are connected. And they can cast shadow. Again, this is now your scene. You can do whatever you want with it. So I can do a more prominent shading from above if I wish, and that's what I wish, for example. And you can go in and I can strengthen the line work, especially the lines on the bottom of my figure. And I will get a little bit of feeling of more depth here for him. And basically just keep detailing it as much as you like. It's a good idea to add to double your lines. For example, here, double up where you want to show more depth. And this could be with the smallest things, right? And again, you can use you can now use these cracks to keep describing your form more and more. Right, look, I can take a crack, take it from here, down to here, down to here, and down to there. And that really shows the direction that everything is going in here. It really shows my form. Let's look at some more details here that we can add. So again, we can keep thinking in terms of where to stack more cracks. You can see that he has some dark breaks. Dark ass breaks. cracks in the wall. The wall is likely to crack at the seams, at the edges. But again, you don't want to get too heavy with your line work, except for a few like focal points. Like if I add like super heavy stuff here, it really takes away from my composition here. So I would sometimes even go with my eraser, kind of like in a low opacity, and soften, you know, some of the places that I think maybe I want to chill out a little bit, so you can focus more on the main composition, on the main aspecto. You gotta practice it, dude. And I'm getting close to wrapping it up. One thing that could be cool in my image is maybe darkening this part. So you could think about this as my light source is coming from above, and it's almost like I have this light source here, right? And it does something like this. So the way that the light disperses is it goes into here. And then I can have this shadow, which makes my overall composition feel more interesting. I'm gonna put in a few last thoughts here. I think I can throw in just a little bit of shading on the sides. And I feel like my composition, so this is interesting. If you look at this composition, I feel like he has this window here is almost like a balancing act. Like you have this main guy, and then you have the balance here. So let's see what happens if I use my own window as a balancing thing. would go even darker on this one. Right? Gives you a more complete feeling for the scene. And obviously you can keep going and detailing it forever, depending on your style. Right, I could add more pipes, small pipes, large pipes, all kinds of pipes here. I can add more. Pipes going into my scene. I don't know, I like it just a little bit more. To have just a little bit more objects feels more interesting. But I don't know, whatever you find more impactful. You can go crazy with cracks, just going in and adding more cracks. Or adding butt cracks, you know? Whatever suits your fancy. But basically, what we've done here is, God damn it. God damn it. Oi, oi. Basically, what we've done is we have evaluated, we have analyzed the panel and then recreated our own panel. And this is what I would do, I would do this at least once a week. And this is how you transfer a whole lot of knowledge into your drawing, creating brain. And as you can see, it doesn't take that long to do it. Like this took around 1 hour for everything. And yeah, very much encouraged to go in and do your own studies like this. Any questions? If there are no questions, we will draw a portrait of Waru. like this. Because that's always something that we like to do. Cool. So, if there are no questions, we will just add a tiny doodle to the side here. Before wrapping up. Right? You should always add I think an explosion actually follows a lot of the principles here. But effects is basically a whole subject of its own that I'm gonna look at some point, I guess. Effects seem easy, seem like an afterthought almost, but effects are not easy. Mm-hmm. Bro, Wado is going crazy with his guns. All right. The plot of Domu, it's a crazy thing. It's like there's this building and there are supernatural forces that make people gradually go insane, and the whole thing just goes crazy. It's interesting. I think you should check it out. It's not like a super tight thriller. I don't even know how to describe it. I just think it's a cool piece of visual storytelling, and it's very exploratory. So you should check it out. Jack, thank you for coming out tonight. I'm going to finish at that. Thank you very much. And this will be up for repeat viewing for all audiences in a little bit. Thank you for joining me tonight, and see you around.